internally reading right now. I was trying to do a second Mike the Cop one, and I don't know, I think I slapped my keyboard and I hit the hotkey to turn off the recording. Very, very unhappy about this right now. But that's okay. It's just a 20-minute rant. It was a little rambly. Let's see if we can make this one a little more concise. Yeah, no, the hard drive still has space on it. Definitely wasn't that problem. Okay, so this is gonna be a fun one. We get to trash Tucker Carlson, Mike the Cop, and the governor of New Jersey.
Governors are making. How important is the Bill of Rights when these governors are making decisions about your right to peacefully assemble, your right to freedom to express your religion?
So this is really fun. So I have to explain this again a little bit because I told you the last one, but what he's doing here is taking this very nebulous like concept of like what your rights are, and then just being like, they can't restrict your right to peaceful assembly or do the thing, you know, and the Constitution says that, therefore fuck you. And like he ignores that there's just legal precedents set up in like various legal cases. Like I pulled up a few articles here. You have the CDC who talks about like what role the state and federal governments have in enforcing quarantines and responding to medical outbreaks. And the state and local governments enforce isolation and quarantine within their borders, which they can use. It says it somewhere else on here. Basically, like they can make it like a misdemeanor and like a criminal thing to like violate the quarantine and stuff. Oh, expected quarantine orders. Yeah, but basically, like, yeah, it's the state's rights to do this, and like it's confirmed. Like this case, I'll link like the 3 articles that I read on it. 2 Centuries Law Guide: The Legal Approach to Modern Pandemic. This is from the American Bar Association, who elaborate on the government having like the right to restrict rights during a pandemic. So what idiots like this, who like argue from this libertarian anti-government perspective, like don't really ever want to go into, is they take this very like ethereal like version of your rights and like what you get in a constitution, and then they're just like, and now you can't do anything in that respect. And it's like ludicrous when you get into it, because all rights, and there's no such thing as like an absolute right. When people are like, I'm a free speech absolutist, okay, cool, should you be able to use your money to like pay someone to kill your wife? Like, isn't that just speech? Isn't money speech? You know? Or just even asking someone to kill your wife. Like, if you're trying to solicit someone to murder your wife, is that legal? No, right? You can't shout fire in a crowded theater. You can't solicit hits. You can't do all of this stuff because we have limits on our speech. And the question then isn't like, do you believe in free speech absolutism, or aren't you? Which is an excellent framing for them, because they get to like posit themselves as like the freedom lovers and you the tyrant. You know, it's it's just like, to what extent are we regulating speech? Because they always want to take that moral high ground of I love freedom and you hate freedom, and it's not that simple. It's very complicated. Your rights all exist as like this tangled web of ideas and values that we have, and the I don't know if it's idiom or phrase or whatever of like, your right to throw a punch stops where my face begins. All these rights exist to like protect and perpetuate themselves in such a manner that we can regulate and restrict them so as to better enforce their like widespread access, right? Like intimidating speech is an example. If you allowed just KKK rallies to be held all over the place, that speech would serve to, who are advocating for violence against black people or whatever. If you had something like that, it would serve to suppress the speech and the freedoms of minorities. It's like the heckler's veto or something like that. But yeah, like every single right exists like within this context, and the Supreme Court's job is to say, okay, when we have this amendment, like how do we interpret that? What are your rights, and how does the government's ability to protect and restrict these rights, how does that interplay, right? When it comes to protecting public health in a pandemic, they have a fair degree of power. Oh, whoops.
Tons of conjecture, opinions flying back and forth all over the internet right now about all of this stuff when it comes to the government's clear overreach in its response to COVID-19. Again, the issue is not whether or not COVID-19...
Wait, how does he frame this?
Government forth tons of conjecture, opinions flying back and forth all over the internet right now about all of this stuff when it comes to in its response to COVID-19.
Yeah, whatever.
The issue is not whether or not COVID-19 is real, or is a real threat, or whether it's actually impacting people's lives. We can debate the
this is specifically not true. The degree of a threat also determines the constitutionality, or maybe not constitutionality, the morality of your response to it, right? So, like, if everyone walked outside, like, if we had, I don't know, like, let's say there's some sort of, like, hypothetical crisis where if, like, 100 million people walk outside simultaneously, a bomb goes off or some weird thing like that. I don't know. Like, just think of some, like, really extreme thing. Then that justifies a higher degree of curtailment of rights than, something lesser. Like a lesser consequence for that action. So the degree and the severity, like, he's trying to act like these are two separate things, right? You have, like, is the pandemic serious? But, like, our rights exist as a like a monument or whatever, or, like, not a monument. Our rights exist as, like, this unassailable thing that it doesn't matter how bad something else is. The rights are the rights. Fuck you. But that's not true. The degree of, like, the severity in the pandemic tells you, like, how you need to respond through legislation or through action or through enforcement in order to prevent the spread of this, which will result in the further restrictions of freedoms and the death of many, many people. So you can't present these as, like, disconnected, like, concepts, which he's trying to do, because he's a fucking moron. Because he doesn't want to come off as anti-science, although he does kind of imply a little bit here, like, oh, they're kind of exaggerating a little bit. But even if they're not exaggerating, then it doesn't matter anyway. But no, it does, which is why, like, a huge part of the, like, like, lockdown, whatever campaign goes into undermining the severity of COVID-19. Oh, the 120,000 deaths, that's a lie. All this is a lie. You know, the whole point in doing that is because it undermines the calculus of weighing, like, how severe is the pandemic versus, like, how much we're willing to restrict ourselves. It changes that calculus if you can undermine how severe the pandemic is, right? Because the less severe it is, the less you're going to justify restrictions, but the more severe it is, the more restrictions you'd be able to, like, justify in that, like, cost benefit analysis that like an individual might consider, like, unconsciously, or, like, a government or a health agency has to actively consider.
We have that, but the question is not the seriousness or the reality of that virus. The question is also the seriousness of the erosion of our rights as part of the response to this virus. And that's where I want to sit on this, because I heard it with my own ears tonight in an interview with New Jersey Governor and Tucker Carlson. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't make this stuff up. A man's arrested for sitting in the park by himself, and a group of 50.
That one kind of makes me laugh, because, like, I feel like that the context is really missing from that, and I can't find the article, but based on the governor elaborates on it, I'm pretty sure, like, they just cherry picked, like, someone who was there when, like, the police were like, y'all need to get the fuck out of the park, because, like, everyone else was violating stuff, is what it seems like, but, like, I can't really find it. Like, sorry, I'm, like, copying these over real quick. I think I talked about this in the last one. I don't know if I'll do it again, but whatever. There's so many. These links are so random. There's, like, me Googling, like, the Waco siege and stuff. I promise it all pulled together really well when I did it last time. It's a real shame that I fucked it up, because I'm so woefully incompetent. We'll link this too. This is, like, the full, because where Mike cuts it off at the end is, like, really ridiculous.
Worshippers at a synagogue, all cited as part of a violation of these orders that are clearly outside the scope of the Bill of Rights.
Mike, as a professionally trained lawyer that you are, I understand that you have a very well-versed... Okay, I'm done doing this troll. He's not a lawyer. He's a moron. And, like, as I just discussed, and you could, like... This is a cursory Google search away, right? Constitution quarantine. Just Google these two things. You get the CDC page on it. Oh, yeah, there's the ABA. There's the ABA link I had right there, Like, all of this is literally right fucking there. It's right fucking there. Like, this is one Google search away. I even fucking typoed Constitution, and it pulled up everything. You say, and he could have just read these two articles and been like, oh, I guess the government do have rights to implement quarantines. It's not a violation of your rights because it's, well, for no other reason than the Supreme Court said so. And here, listen, the Supreme Court's not perfect, right? You have the whole, like, hey, segregation, separate but equal is great, Like, they fuck up. They definitely fuck up. But the mode of remediation for that fuck up is, like, that New Jersey or whoever implements a quarantine, You sue them as a private citizen or an organization, and it eventually gets its way back to like a relevant court who says like, or I guess the Supreme Court would have to actually go to, and the Supreme Court would say like, oh yeah, we were wrong 50, 100, however many years ago when we laid out that principle. Let's revisit it, or let's clarify it, or whatever, you know? And that's not what's happening here. That's not what's happening here at all. He's just saying that they're breaking the Constitution, ignoring that like the Constitution has been interpreted and has been elaborated on, and the CDC clarifies that. The ABA talks about it. You could read Supreme Court rulings on it. It's all fucking there. You know, you're posting this on the internet. Presumably you have hands or at least fucking text to speech where you could like somehow Google this. But like now he didn't because he's a fucking moron. But like that's the whole shtick, right? You take this very nebulous concept of rights. You imply it however the fuck you want. It's a virtual like Rorschach test of like whatever you think your freedoms are, and then you interpret it. Actually, we'll go into the Tiger King example and the whole like that's why I have the Waco siege thing up. So my favorite example to like demonstrate how stupid this is the whole like libertarian mindset is if you violate my rights, that I could use force in order to protect my rights, and I don't need to negotiate this. I will use force. Now, one of my issues with that is the overemphasis on using force and violence to enforce your rights, as opposed to mediation and compromise and whatever, because like some things you think your rights are just stupid. But here's the thing: if you just say my rights are my rights, you have no right to restrict them, and if you try and do that, I am justified in using any and all force necessary in order to reinforce my natural rights of man. If you do that, the only criteria that you really need to change to justify using violence is what is an infringement on your rights, okay? So, to give one other example, I think it's the Threepers. The Three Percenters are a far-right anti-government militia group, and I'm trying to remember I'm pretty sure it was them. There's a whole bunch of these nutters out there. I think it was their leader. Maybe it was one of the other ones. Boogaloo movement, cool. Oh, actually, it might have been Posse Comitatus. Whatever. Anyway, one of their leaders, this is back when they were passing like the healthcare reform bill, said that passing the ACA is an infringement on our rights. People need to like use like he basically just said like you need to kill people like Nancy Pelosi and like Harry Reid because like they're violating our rights with what they're doing here is basically what he said. So once again, if violence is your only solution for grievances, then what your grievances are, and you're like very vague about what your grievances are, you can justify violence for anything. So the ACA, that justified violence. Or like the great one, the Tiger King example, which like anyone can really like sort of kind of understand, is like the first or second episode of Tiger King. It's really great. He's talking about how like if throughout the course of that show, they're talking about a bill that's before Congress that's like regulating the tiger trade or something in the United States. He's like, if anyone tries to come for my tigers, we're gonna Waco this bitch. And there's also like various things where like they illustrate throughout the thing that how they're armed, how they have guns, how he's constantly threatening violence against people like Carol Baskin, and in this case the state and federal government if they come to try and like take his tigers away, because he says it's his right to own tigers, and if you try and take away his rights, then he is justified in using violence to protect those rights. That's what he's fucking doing there. So he threatens to Waco this shit, which was like a 60-day standoff in like the 90s between the Branch Davidians and the FBI, ATF, and all this shit. That ended with 60 of them dying and like 4 ATF agents. They were like heavily armed. And they had this standoff with the federal government. So that's what he's threatening to do if people try and take away his tigers. Here they're like, oh, it's our religious freedom, blah, 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 whatever. And then they didn't care. Now it's just, if you try and take my tigers, I'll fucking kill federal agents. Really 10 out of 10 great bunch of guys there. Let's finish this.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
Okay, so I'm going to preface this. Phil Murphy, I kind of went over his history here a little bit. Where the fuck is it? Do I not have it? Okay, whatever. Phil Murphy. Phil Murphy is the governor of New Jersey. He's been the governor of New Jersey since 2018. Seems like I guess an okay enough guy. The progressive organization. I don't know what his positions are. But like if we go through like his history right here, it seems like his first thing that he really did was in 2006, where he was the finance chair of the Democratic National Committee. And then he was the ambassador to Germany from 2009 to 2013. And then he was the chair of the Democratic Governors Association. Seemingly. Oh, okay. Okay, he got that at the same time. Okay, so he went from like all of this, seemingly none of these are like elected positions, to like then getting elected governor. Now, there is a value in going on a show like Tucker fucking Carlson, because you're going to reach a population who you wouldn't otherwise reach. People who are stuck in this Tucker Carlson echo chamber. But when you go on a show like this, come ready to fuck, okay? What I mean by that is that Tucker Carlson is a piece of shit, human garbage, whose sole purpose as a trained media propagandist is to perpetuate his cause and damn yours. And you, as the Democratic governor of New Jersey, are his enemy. He is going to try and make you look bad in every conceivable way. The first thing he does here is mention how, like, oh, why are you locking up a single guy in a park and 15 like churchgoers, right? Like, these are his strongest arguments Tucker can make. One, you have this enshrined concept of like your freedom of religion and how like we're attacking people for their faith. That's what he's trying to invoke there. And the way he pitches like the initial question is also pretty funny. From like this is great. Like, tell me how you need to arrest a guy sitting alone on a beach, and how that prevents spread from an epidemiological standpoint. It's like, okay, you're throwing out all these science words, and you're giving this clearly ridiculous example of a guy sitting alone on a beach and how he shouldn't have been arrested, devoid of context. And Governor Murphy here is completely unaware of what he's talking about, and he does kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about there. And he gives a great example here where like what he's going to talk about is how like it's fine for you to like go to parks, go running, so as long as you're social distancing. And the problem is they weren't social distancing, which is like we want to give people the ability to go out and do stuff, but like you need to do it responsibly. I fucking hate oh, there's fucking Tucker Carlson. What a jackass. This is where he like fucks this up horribly.
Seriousness of the reality that
Fuck. How do you have the power to take away people's rights? And the correct answer here is the motherfucking Constitution. He can go over like, hey, it's our constitutional right to like serve the public's health's interest within this context. If people are practicing doing these activities safely, we can be reasonable in this respect, but like we can't just let people go out, not socially distance, spread the pandemic, and kill those most vulnerable in our society as a result of recklessly spreading a pandemic. It's our elected responsibility, with the powers to curb a pandemic that are delegated by the Constitution, and the desires of our population by electing us to inform their safety and enact laws performing that effect. Man, this rant was really better in the last video. That's okay. Whatever. The point being, like, he has a mandate by being duly elected, and he has the right, based off the Constitution, to enforce a lockdown, which is what he's doing. And seemingly what he's saying here, we're like, yeah, if they're like social distancing, but when we get leg tips, you know, like we do it as we have to, which was good. Probably a little on the reckless side since there's so many dumb fucking people in the world, but whatever. Saying it's above your pay grade when Tucker, like, let's, hold on, where the fuck is it? Under what authority did you nullify the Bill of Rights? And he just goes, that's above my pay grade. Like, I'm just saying, man. I value going on a show like Tucker Carlson when you need to like get out a message on like public safety and like what you guys are doing to curb a pandemic and like reaching people who you otherwise wouldn't reach. Totally fine. But when you're going into the lion's den, bring a fucking sword, man. Like, get some media training. You probably have some money or at least some advisors who can be like, hey, listen, man, when you go there, Tucker Carlson's going to try and make you look like an asshole. Here's probably how he's going to do it, and then you just prepare for what he's probably going to do, and then you just be on the hospital talking to Tucker Carlson like he's your fucking friend, as though he's not like a political adversary who's going to try and make you look like shit while you're just trying to save people's fucking lives is ridiculous. Saying it's above your pay grade to know what the Bill of Rights is makes you look dumb. But like, I look at the whole video here. I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this. And then Tucker gets in that nice little jab, and Mike cuts off. You don't hear any more of this here.
We are among, if not the most,
I'm sure.
and hashing it out with the leaders, the
Government and executive. How do you have the authority to order something that so clearly contravenes the Bill of Rights of the United States, the U.S. Constitution? Since you are an elected that, though, I think it's.
we looked at the data
Well, I can
and the
tell.
science.
Did you know?
Okay, so it's at 11 minutes is when this interaction takes place.
Tucker, so I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this. We went to first of all, we looked at the data
Well, I can
and the
tell.
science, and it says
Tucker gets in his nice little jab there, right when our boy Mike cuts out there.
stay away from each other. That's the best thing we can do to break the back of the curve of this virus.
We're 20 seconds into this answer, hasn't gotten to the point.
That leads to lower hospitalizations and ultimately fatalities.
And I'm not contesting that, though. I think it's. I do think there's a debate. This.
So like he rambles for so long there that Tucker like cuts him off and then tries like reinforcing his like nonsense he's trying to get at here, and
Is a,
he eventually like
I do want, since you are an elected official, a leader in the government.
Jesus
executive,
Christ, this is miserable to listen to.
How do you have the authority to order something that so clearly contravenes the Bill of Rights of the United States, the U.S. Constitution? Where do you get the authority to do that?
Well, here's the thing. We know we need to stay away from each other. Number one. Number two, we do have broad authority within the state. And number three, we would never.
See, number two, it's over a minute later after Tucker reposes the question that he has broad authority within the state. Okay, you need to present that much more concretely, much fucking earlier. It is our constitutional authority to institute a lockdown and then like you can like throw out a court case there and sound authoritative, right? You could like the Gibbons versus Ogden or whatever the fuck he wants to like cite. Like I'm sure he has lawyers that work for him there, you know. You could throw out like whatever thing you want to do and just cite a few things and then move the fuck on, or don't cite anything and just say it's our constitutional right and it's our democratic mandate as the elected government authority in this state to do what we're doing. Is what he should have said. Took him a fucking minute, and he just kind of like, oh yeah, like we have the power to do it. Like you don't use like the strong wording of like the constitutional or freedom. He doesn't do any of that. This is like devoid of any sort of media training. Like Jesus fucking Christ.
Number two, we do have broad authority within the state. And number three, we would never do that without coordinating, discussing.
Like here's the thing. If you want to go out there and do outreach, I'm fine with it. I think it's important. But you need to go there prepared. Otherwise, you end up looking like a dunce like this and doing more harm than you're doing good. And he's undoubtedly doing like more harm to the people who would watch it than he does now. Because like by not going there, you're just going to have people who are thinking whatever. You went on there, let Tucker Carlson like bully you for 15 minutes, give you loaded question after loaded question, and then you just do it. Like,
The variety of leaders in the face of New Jersey. We are among, if not the most.
No, I'm sure that you can talk to every rabbi and priest, but there's a deeper question here. And I'm just gonna ask you one last time because I think it's important. I'm sure you've thought about this.
right.
Well, there you have it from the proverbial horse's mouth. And like I say, you just can't make this stuff up. And this is just
Or can you? Or can you? Look the wrong way. Apparently you can make it up because he just cut the video, avoided the context, didn't go over any of the like this is literally one Google search away, right? Typoed it, everything, CDC link, APA link, all this stuff is literally right there for him to read. But no, with 500,000 fucking subscribers nearly, he just goes out there, makes up nonsense and tells people your rights are being infringed by this overstepping government.
one thing out there that is easily recognizable for yourselves. If you look at it, you have the LA County Sheriff released.
It's just like really funny because he like sort of embodies like if anyone ever watched Parks and Recreation, the whole like Ron Swanson, like I work for the government but I fucking hate the government. That's literally him. He's a fucking cop, goes around enforcing like the fucking random laws that are like varying degrees of like unjust and some just ones I'm sure he enforces as well, you know. Yeah, so he's going around doing that, but like meanwhile he's like railing on about like government overreach here when he's like, he literally works for the physical manifestation of one of the largest government overreaches in our society, which is like our aggressive like police state that we use to like enforce like the status quo. I'm doing a little research for like the other video, but like I'll go more in depth onto that in a later like longer video. It's gonna be like 30 minutes to an hour of like me monologuing, not responding to like morons.
You've got governors mandating certain apparel to go out in public. I mean, this is the stuff of like freaking 1984. I don't know what is going on out there.
I do love how he cites like 1984. Like George Orwell was like a anti-totalitarian like socialist, and like a big part of that was like I think it's Wilson. I think his name is Wilson. Like worked for the government, and he would like create propaganda for the government to make like reality reflect the worldview. Did that's literally what he's doing, right? Like he edited the video to like leave out, or I guess didn't edit it, but he like cut out part of that video where like the governor like better justifies his answer, clips the part where he looks really fucking shitty, and he still looks shitty. Like it just makes him look more shitty, where he like is acting like he's violating the Bill of Rights. And doesn't even care. It's just, oh, I'm violating the Bill of Rights. Like, it's literally what he's fucking doing there. And then clips it out of context. Doesn't provide, like, any, like, the legal case that support it. Just keeps repeating how it's violating their rights.
All I know is any cops that are citing people for gathering for religious purposes, 15 people gathering for worship, and you're going to cite them, you should be ashamed of yourselves, and I'm going to continue to speak out against all
It's actually good that I rewatched this part of it, because I somehow missed it. I'm an idiot, because I was like railing on about this video, trying to find where he says this line, that he's going to rail against cops who are citing people for gathering when they're not supposed to be gathering, because these are unjust, unconstitutional laws. And it's just fucking hysterical. Like, to monologue a little bit. So one of the first like videos of Mike the Cop that I got like so fucking irritated about that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do like a response video. I'm gonna start like a YouTube channel, because like I really fucking hate Mike the Cop. Is he had a video on Eric Garner and Daniel Pantaleo. Daniel Pantaleo is the cop that choked out Eric Garner in Staten Island in like 2014. Killed the man. Yeah, he killed him. It's crazy. He just killed that dude, choked him out. He'd fucking died. And Daniel Pantaleo killed that man. Very, very, very unfortunate. So he had like a 20-minute rant talking about how like, oh, they gave in. I think they fired Daniel Pantaleo for like breaking laws. It took them literally years. Keep on this happened. That video came out a year ago, so that's 2019. The Eric Garner incident happened in I think 2014. Took 5 years for this officer who killed someone to like, they're like, yeah, he violated department guidelines. He's fired. And I believe they fired him. And my cop's like, look at them bucking to political pressure, blah, blah, blah. Like, losing his fucking shit about this. Of this cop being held to, like, the most, literally killed a man. And then after 5 years, they're like, hey, man, you're going to have to, like, stop working for the police because you killed a guy by breaking department guidelines. And he just lies about it, like, nonstop. That is what he went defense on the police for. Meanwhile, he's just like, if the police try and enforce state-ordered quarantine, social distancing, and mask wearing, that is a violation of your rights, and that is an unlawful order the cops shouldn't follow. But if you kill a minority and you choke them out in Staten Island, I'll go to the mat for that. But like when you're trying to serve like the actual public interest that goes against like his political affiliation, all of a sudden like, oh, that's where it's a violation of rights. And my absolute favorite part of this bill, of this video.
constitutional rights when you have sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
Oh no, it's in the other video. I started like laughing my ass off when I saw this.
A request of you to
So he does this, and he's complaining about people calling the police for people violating like quarantine and like not wearing masks. Like that's what he's crying about in this.
send me a sternly worded by CBD Ops, CBDOps.com.
This makes me so this makes me laugh so much. So he plugs a CBD oil at the end here. So CBD oil is like still like, so they use hemp to make CBD oil, which has very, very low levels of THC. It doesn't actually get you high. This is still federally, if I'm not mistaken, I'm very certain that this is still federally regulated, but they kind of like do a loose hand thing on it, because previously hemp was just as illegal as like marijuana plants that produce like high THC, like marijuana strains. So still, when people are producing hemp and then trafficking, or essentially trafficking, I should say, bringing it across state lines, and they get pulled over. They've gotten like order seized and stuff because they need to like test it and all this stuff because it's still federally regulated. And this is him, a fucking cop who fucking is anti-government, who's like getting paid by CBD oil, by CBD oil. I think just recently legalized that. Like, Mike the cop looks like he's in like his late 30s, early 40s. I think I've seen a video where he indicated he was a cop for like 15 plus years at this point. So he's probably enforced some pretty draconian drug laws, and here he is like benefiting off of like the legalization of like certain substances, or the normalization of like marijuana and like hemp derivatives that like make people happy. And here he is like plugging at the end of his fucking video about people calling the cops for nonsense. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, the irony actually fucking kills me. In a video you're making about people calling the police over nonsense and like being asked to enforce things like mask wearing and how it's making cops get more sick, or like whatever the fuck his nonsense is, ignoring how like people going out in public without masks is making the public sick, and he's mad that like you're calling us about possibly sick people not wearing masks, and like now we're getting sick because of it, and that's wrong. And it's like, but like it's your job to enforce laws. And meanwhile, like you probably enforce like marijuana laws and other draconian like drug laws that are like unduly harsh, and here you are at the end of the day profiting off of plugging CBD oil. Like,
CBD.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Shameless plug.
Incredibly shameless plug. The most shameless plug, particularly due to the context of your entire channel, your entire career, and your entire existence, because you're a bad hombre, Mike. You're the worst hombre, the worst of hombres. You're a bad dude, and no one should respect you, because it's the 4th of July, and I love freedom, and you hate freedom because you're a bad dude. I'm trying to think if there's any other thing that I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, like I guess I'll kind of like shoehorn this in at the end. The reason I had the New Zealand article up was that New Zealand had like their lockdown. I don't know the exact specifics of their lockdown, but basically they were able to reopen like a month ago. They could end social distancing because like they had no cases of COVID for like weeks. Like, that's great. They have like high social trust in their government. They're generally considered one of the best places to live. It's a small country, and there's only like 6 million people in it. But they did their lockdown. They did their quarantine. Everyone went back to normal life by doing it in a reasonable amount of time. They didn't freak out, and now they're able to go back to like living a somewhat normal life. We fucked up, and more people are stupid, and we don't respect like what medical health professionals that we employ to give us like good information have to say. We call them like deep state. We say they're trying to like take away our rights. They like whatever nonsense they spread about Dr. Fauci. And like that's why we're still dealing. Not only are we still dealing with our pandemic, but it is getting worse while other countries are like able to like fully reopen after like virtually eliminating the fucking disease in their country. Just a virus, I should say, not disease. Yeah. So Mike the cop, huge asshole, biggest of assholes. Like when we say like, oh, not all cops, like yeah, I guess not all cops. Like probably 20% of them are like actually good people, but like Mike the cop definitely fits like pretty far along that spectrum of being a piece of shit, and also being a dumbass. And he's pretty high on the both being a piece of shit and being a dumbass, and it's really hard to like conceptualize. It is very hard to like try and tell if someone's like just dumb or if they're malicious. And like he's definitely really dumb, but he's also pretty fucking malicious. So it's very hard to figure out like, oh, is he like cutting this interview because he's dumb or because he's malicious? And the whole like 1984 thing at the end kind of made me laugh because in the book 1984, there's this like the 2-minute hate where like people get in front of the TV and they yell about I think his name's Goldstein. They yell about Goldstein, who's like their enemy, who they like get in front of and they just yell and they scream and they like shout profanities for 2 minutes just so they remember who the fuck they hate. Okay, and meanwhile here's Mike with his 2 minutes of hate, his nearly 4-minute video where he's just like, look at this liberal governor trying to take away your rights because he doesn't know about our freedoms. Is literally what he's doing. The 2-minute fucking hate. He's literally doing the 2-minute fucking hate from 1984, but for 4 minutes, so it's twice as long as the 2-minute hate about how we need to like hate liberals because they're like taking away our freedom. And look at this governor who doesn't understand freedom. Literally what he's fucking doing. What an asshole. Huge asshole. Biggest asshole. Literally doing the propaganda from 1984, then quoting 1984 to talk about like whatever nonsense he was going on about. Complete asshole. What a dumbass. There'll be more Mike the Cop videos.